say to me, I hear you're a vocal coach, I hear you're a singing teacher, and I hear you specialise in working with people who don't think they can sing. They say to me, well, you couldn't teach me to sing, they say. There is a program that I have developed called Sing Therapy, okay? And Sing Therapy is a very lovely and fun experience. It's basically working with people who believe, for whatever reason, that they can't sing, or for people who sing but believe that they are kind of where they're at and they can't get any further. And a lot of what we do with singing is to do with the way that we believe we sing. We have these beliefs, these long-held beliefs about our ability. A lot of people were perfectly happy singing until something happened, until somebody said something or something happened that made them feel something. So more often than not, there will have been an occasion or an event or an occurrence where something happened that made somebody feel like something, and they didn't like feeling like that, and so they didn't do the thing that happened before the person did the thing or whatever. And so singing was usually followed by something, like somebody didn't like their singing, or their brother teased them, or the teacher at school said, oh, you're growling, go to the back, or, you know, and all these things happen to people. And quite often as well, a lot of men never sang after their voice broke. But there have been lots of times in people's lives where, you know, there was a point at which, a watershed moment at which changed something. And so this person who was singing happily, or just unconsciously, or didn't even think about it, they just sang. And then they didn't. And then there's a thing in the middle. So, and we work through it, and it can be lots of fun. And we can do lots of playful things. We can do some beautiful things that make us feel better, like breathwork. Breathwork, oh, it's just free and fabulous and just makes you feel marvellous. You can get your body to create all these lovely sensations. You know, it's a natural high, breathwork. It's absolutely amazing. And then creating the sound through creating resonance, and just know that your body is a musical instrument, that you can create vibration, you can create all this lovely, you've got this resonance that creates this sound, and it hasn't got to be like anybody else, it can just be you, and that's fine. And what we do in my groups, what we do in my sing therapy groups, is we come together and we play with our voices. But at the same time, we're learning techniques that are the same techniques that opera singers use. They're the same techniques for building the body as an instrument, to feeling this beautiful sense of controlled relaxation where you are chilled. You know, we do some stuff lying on the floor, you know, on yoga mats. We do some stuff with our heads in our hands. We just make the body feel comfortable making sounds. And also we pay a little bit of attention to identifying the things that have stopped us singing in the past, and then we work through them and we let them go. And we do this with a series of techniques that I've developed to do with sing therapy. So we do a bit of journaling, we do a little bit of self-exploration, we do a little bit of sharing if we want to, but a lot of it is about finding out what's going on with ourselves, and then working through that, building up very, very strong, reliable and relaxed singing techniques, and then finding a way to enjoy using them, becoming a singer. You know, becoming someone who does not come up to me at a party and say, you couldn't teach me to sing and I'm tone deaf and all this, because you've done it, really. There is a thing called tone deafness. There is. It's a thing. It's a medical condition called amusia, And there is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people in the world who have this. But it's probably not you. I mean, it could be you. You could be the person with amusia watching this. And if you have got amusia, you probably don't want to learn to sing because you probably don't have the capacity to hear one note from another. So it probably wouldn't be a thing that you'd be interested in doing. Most of us do not have amusia. A lot of us have, it's a lack of experience. A lot of us have not sung. Since you were 5, 6, 7, whatever, you haven't sung. So how would you know how to do it? If I give you a tennis racket and said, right, go over there and hit a ball and do the thing, but you didn't know that you had to do this thing with your arm or this thing with your head or this thing with the other hand, and you didn't know that, how would you be expected to play a tennis match? And yet people who've never sung expect themselves to be able to go to karaoke and sing like an absolute bird, and then they're disappointed when they can't. Well, everything can be taught. Everything can be taught in singing. It's just because we all experience our voices in very different ways. And until we investigate and look into it, we don't really know how we experience our voices. Everybody does it differently. Everybody has different relationships with their voices. And because we tend to compare ourselves, usually unfavourably, with others, there's a lot of assumption that this is how you do it, this is how you sing, this is what happens when you sing, this is what you feel like when you sing, this is what you sound like when you sing. But if you look at the enormous amount of people in the world who sing, the enormous amount, just go on Spotify, for a couple of minutes and just see all the different singers, hear all the different singers, the different genres of music, the different styles of vocalizing, the different traditions of singing. There are so many different things going on. And yet we will say, oh, I can't sing because you can't sing, in tune with Barry Gibb or something. Well, nobody's Barry Gibb apart from him. And so, I don't know why I said Barry Gibb. What? Oh, I've got a bit of a Bee Gee thing in my head at the moment. Anyway, so we all have a different relationship with our voices. We all have a different concept of what music is and what singers are and what singing is and what singing does. And so one of the things that we do in sing therapy is we explore those things. We explore our relationship with our voice. We explore what we believe to be true about singing. And we write a lot of lists. We do a lot of, introspection, and just kind of discover a little bit about ourselves and our experience and our preferences. It may be that we've been brought up in a family who listens to country and western, but in our hearts, we actually prefer to listen to, Mozart or something like that, but we've never really had the opportunity, or whatever. There are so many different ways of experiencing singing. There are so many different ways of singing, of using your voice. And this is why it's such a beautiful exploration, because you can find out so much about yourself as you discover your relationship with your voice. Then there's how our voice makes us feel. There's how do we feel when we use our voice? Are we repressed? Are we excited? Do we explore sound? All this stuff goes on. I did a course once. I've done a lot of courses, but I did this course, Self-Defense for Women. So don't mess with me, okay? But I did this wonderful course, Self-Defense for Women, run by the Metropolitan Police, actually. And I'm actually quite good at defending myself. But what was interesting was one of the things that we had to do, and this was years ago. This, I think, was before I started teaching, actually. Yeah, it was, because my kids were tiny. And one of the things that we had to do is we had to punch and we had to shout. And we had to shout certain things. We had to shout off really loud. I won't do it really loud because my microphone will explode. But you'd sort of punch this thing and you go off like that, which is a thing to do if someone's... Yeah, anyway. So that, and also you had to be able to really raise your voice to raise the alarm. So it wasn't rehearsal, it was training. we would do these things. And what surprised me was at that point, I mean, I was quite young, I suppose, and I was surprised at how many women found it almost impossible to raise their voice, that they could not shout, that we were all in this room and we were punching, we were shouting. Of course I was shouting because, you know, common. And these women couldn't shout, and there was a couple of women there who actually found it so difficult emotionally to raise their voice that they had to leave. They left the room, you know, in tears, that it was overwhelming, that they were unable to do it. Or this one woman in particular that I spoke to had actually been physically assaulted on a tube train, and there were people around, and she felt powerless to raise her voice, that she wasn't able to because of the way she was, or, you know, her embarrassment, or her whatever it was, or maybe she was just freezing in the moment, that she was unable to get herself out of that situation because she couldn't raise her voice. And I've spoken to a lot of women who find it really, really difficult to raise their voice. Men too, obviously, but I've spoken to more women than men. So that is something that is an issue in itself. You know, the ability to raise one's voice, the ability to be heard, to make a noise, to make a sound without fear. Because all sorts of fears come up for people in terms of raising their voice. You know, it means something to people. We put a meaning on things. And so raising our voices becomes an issue. And so if you start from there, and actually what you want to do is sing, there's a journey to make, isn't there, between those two things? But is there a journey? Sometimes a big change can come with a very tiny insight. So one little shift in thinking completely can transform your relationship with your voice. But it's when we start looking at it, when we start to give ourselves permission to explore why we do what we do, why we feel what we feel, why we fear what we fear, that those things can start to change, and we can start to release them, you know. So all these processes that we do in sing therapy, it's not just about singing lovely songs, although there is a lot of singing of lovely songs, and it's not just about hanging out with lovely people, but it is a lot of hanging out with lovely people, but also it's about you and your relationship with yourself and your experience. And I think for me it's wonderful when all those things work together, when we can find such joy in our voices that comes with the added bonus of finding joy in ourselves, or putting things away that maybe have haunted us for a long time, you know, maybe these wounds and fears or situations that we have memories of that don't give us pleasure, you know, that those things we can settle. You know, I know it sounds like I'm simplifying, but I kind of am simplifying, because that's my job, you know, simplifying all this stuff that we carry with us, all the wounds, all the beliefs, all the unhelpful thinking, and then we turn it into this gorgeous program, and then you start to enjoy your voice and other people's. Yeah, it is cool. So the techniques are, in sing therapy, we do our questions, our journals, we discover, we investigate ourselves, we find out how we tick, or what's making us tick, or what we think is making us tick in relation to our voices. So we establish a kind of what we believe to be our vocal identity. We work that out. And then we look playfully at it. There are various techniques that I've developed over the years that are great fun. And they can get a bit addictive actually. So we do those. There's a lot of that, journaling and other introspection, sharing stuff if we want to, then working on really solid technique which has its foundation in relaxation. So working with the body and the way that the body actually functions, working with breath, working with relaxed muscles, working with specific controlled parts of the body, the diaphragm, the lungs, you know, all those things that are there to serve our needs. You know, our breath is our voice. So we start to work with the breath, then we start to find the voice and the resonance, and then working out how we can navigate our way through the body, through the different vocal ranges, through the different zones and gear changes of the voice, so we can find all the notes. Looking at the language that we use on ourselves and others to describe singing and notes, and then the vocal exercises, the warm-ups, the physical warm-ups, the vocal warm-ups, the vocal games that play with our voices and help us to expand them. And then the exercises and some really fun stuff, improvisation that's not as scary as it sounds. Honestly, I'm not talking about scat singing and doobie-doo at all, although you can do that if you like. I'm not going to judge you. But there's all sorts of things to do with feeling the voice and exploring and releasing all that. And then songs. Songs. We sing songs, and it's really lovely. And there's a beautiful sense of community. There's a beautiful sense of camaraderie and playfulness, and it's a very loving space. So yeah, I would love to see you at Sing Therapy sessions.